What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview. Every single week, I interview top real estate professionals, top entrepreneurs, and strip top badasses that are out there dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, for their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And today, you guys, got another rock star guest here on the podcast. So our guest today is STACY Bahrenfuss. So STACY is a real estate agent, real estate team leader in Idaho, and she got her license originally when she was 19 years old. So jumped into this industry at a young age. Several years after she entered the industry, that was followed by the great real estate market crash, 2008. She did very well, had to pivot during that time, but did very well, continues to grow and expand her real estate team, doing over $1 million each year in commissions through a real estate team, and really found her niche. So she specializes in representing new builders, developers, and so forth, and creating these communities, helping them sell out on these communities, and has created just an amazing, epic business for herself. And she's going to break down how she did it. If you're looking to get in the new development side of the business as a real estate agent, she spends a lot of time on how to prepare, how to get in, different things to prepare for, mistakes that she made, how to delegate out certain tasks, and so forth. She goes extremely deep in this podcast, and I know that you guys are going to love it. Now, real quick, before we jump in, if you haven't already, make sure that you snag my new book, 100% free, nothing being sold. You can go right now to joshuasmithfreebook.com, snag your online digital copy right now. The book is How to Dominate Your Real Estate Business, Top Tips from a Top Producer, which is just me sharing personally different strategies, methods, tactics, and giving you a lot of different tips of things that I personally did throughout and have done throughout my real estate career to allow me to become one of the top realtors and team leaders on the planet. So make sure to snag your copy, your free copy at joshuasmithfreebook.com. All right, guys, let's jump into this amazing podcast interview with STACY. All right, STACY, I am so stoked and honored to have you here on the GSD Mode podcast.
I'm happy to be here, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you're somebody that's had so much success and continues to have so much success in business and the real estate industry and so forth. And, before we jump into all the things that you're up to today and, the amazing, we were just kind of talking before we hit the record button with how busy you guys are right now and the growth, that you're continuing to experience. But before we get into that, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. And I know you jumped into this industry at a very young age. So, if we wind the clocks, what led you to getting into this space at the age of 19, and how did this journey begin in the first place?
Yeah, so I was actually a senior in high school, and I was joking around with a few of my friends, and I applied as a salesperson at the recently opened resort real estate office in the area that I lived, and I ended up getting hired as the sales coordinator's assistant at the time, and it was just, the beginning of something beautiful, I always say, because being in, a resort style real estate office in a time, it was 2004, 2005, and it was booming. And I was able to see the gap in so many agents and how they did business and delivered the business to their clients on the customer service end of it, that I saw the gap that I wanted to fill, which inspired me to, take the next step and explore getting licensed. And so I took that action and got licensed, and my mission was to change the face of real estate. And at first I just wanted to up level, the customer experience and make it better than how I found it. And that, that's been a tireless pursuit to this day, current. And in addition to that, what I've wanted to do is take on different risks, different projects along the way to show people that whatever you want to do, whether it's in real estate or construction, development, investing, anything is possible. And so over the years, I've opened Catalyst Group as a brokerage, and that of course didn't interest me because there's so much, clerical stuff that takes away from the client interaction. But just to be able to have that experience to show others that it's possible is, behind all that I do.
Yep, I love that. So, a question that I get from a lot of young realtors that jump into this industry, like I just had an agent that just joined my team that's 19 years old. And, I mean, if you look at the average age of the average realtor, I think it's 57 years old. So, you're jumping in at such a young age. And I think a lot of, at least the feedback I get from a lot of young agents when they jump in, and the mindset portion of, well, I'm so young, right? And I mean, did you struggle with that? And what did you do, if so, to overcome that I get messages from podcast listeners that are 16 that want to get licensed as soon as, they get out of high school and so forth. But again, that's, kind of a mental limitation that I think a lot of young people that are jumping into the business struggle with.
Yeah. So, and I definitely had that struggle. I actually interviewed with a broker when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to hang my license, that told me that I would never amount to anything, which of course I love because it just totally drives me. Right. But the thing that really helped me, and I think, will help others, is the fact that you have the inspiration to start something that truly can be built into any massive empire in any way that you want to build it. The fact that you're getting that inspiration at such a young age, it is your duty to take action on it and never look back, and to do that, it's a constant daily ritual and, creating habits that empower you to, step up and be positive and work that muscle so that you can weather, any storm. Make sure that your mindset is, you're reading the books, you're being challenged in that way. And as long as you do that, you can truly build something great, by the time that you're 25. And there's so many people that would love to be able to say that, so it's a great opportunity to take action on.
Yeah. So was college never something that intrigued you? Because that's kind of the typical path, right? You graduate high school, go to college, and so forth. Because you jumped right in after your senior year of high school. Was that just something that you knew that wasn't the path for you, and this career was?
I actually had planned to go to college, and I was going to go for international business because I love to travel, and the language of business has always been of interest to me. But because I was hired at that real estate office at such a young age, and I was obviously still going to high school at that time, it showed me this different world that was so different than all the people that I knew that, they go to college for 4 years plus and get out, have so much debt, and don't know what they want to do. And I had this interest and the ability to start building something right away. And that was really interesting to me instead of going the route of college. I've always done fine in school, but it was always pretty boring to me. Where business, it's like every day you learn something new. And, I've been doing real estate and development, new construction for 14 years. And I learn something new every day, which is invaluable.
Yeah, love it. So then, we all know the statistics. 90% of agents drop out in their first 3 years. And look, not just real estate, but all business, those first couple of years can be such a challenge, and it takes time to build up that momentum and so forth. What did you do out of the gate that allowed you to create success, to not become one of those statistics?
What I did was I figured out what kind of a business I wanted to build. And I broke down how many people I needed to call and make contact with every single day. And I relentlessly executed on that no matter what. If I missed a day because I had a client come into town, I worked Saturday, whatever it took to be able to meet those numbers every week. And that same framework is what my team uses today. Even though, the market is booming like crazy, if you use that, you will be successful because it's, tried and true business practices, how many people you need to call, how many appointments you need to get, how many closings you need to have. And if you can use that equation, you will absolutely hit those numbers that you want to hit.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, the path is in the math.
Exactly. Oh, I love that.
My favorite sayings. Yeah, so you jumped in, and right now, with the craziness of the market that's taking place, it feels a lot like 2005. Right? But then following, like we all know, obviously what happened post, 2000, when we hit 2007, 2008, 2009, and so forth, during those times, because I saw so many, because I got licensed in 2005, and And, there were so many of these like mega agents in our market that weren't able to pivot and shift during that market crash. And the same held true. Then, we saw a lot of these, let's just say short sale REO experts that built these mega businesses that weren't able to transition back into the traditional market. Like, what did you do to kind of shift and adapt to be able to thrive during the worst housing crash really we've ever seen?
Yeah. So what I did was just doubled the output, right? So let's say I had to call 10 people a day. I did 20. And so that improved my odds. And in doing that, everything increased. So that would be the main thing. And then always thinking about, and also asking for feedback from clients along the way of, what are those pain points that they consistently see in the market, and making sure that I fill those holes in my delivery process, so that word of mouth, goes like wildfire because of that experience that, we're providing. So it was definitely those two things, and just making every moment count as well. If I was completing all of my numbers in doubling them, but still had time, don't stop there. So it was just that continuation of effort out, because it was such a crazy time. And fortunately, my business grew at least 26% or more each year during that time. And it's those things that made all the difference.
Yeah, love it. So at what point did the team start? Did you start your team? And more importantly, like, what led you to, I guess, starting the team?
Yes. So that was 2011. And I knew that I wanted to grow and, go big or go home is what I always say. And so in doing that, I have always really enjoyed working with the developments and all of the builders. And so there was some opportunity to take on bigger developments at that time. I knew I needed an on-site salesperson, the proper transaction coordinator, assistant admin, marketing. And that was the biggest part. And through that process, I knew how to be a really great agent. I didn't necessarily go through the training to become a leader, right? And it's completely different skill set. And so, I found myself, and I think a lot of agents do, spending a lot of time frustrated because it's like, I want to go fast. I want to, move this forward quickly. And, having a team can sometimes feel like it's like doing the opposite. But as you go through, the process of sharpening your saw and leadership and what that all takes, you can then, run quickly and your team's 2 steps ahead. So that was definitely the inspiration behind starting the team.
Yeah, love it. So is the new build, the development end, is that kind of your main niche?
Yes, definitely.
Yep, awesome. And then, because I get reached out to a lot here in the podcast and so forth about agents that are wanting to get into representing new builders and developers and so forth. And every market's different. Like here in Phoenix, all the builders are like Pulte Homes and, these big nationwide builders that they have in-house agents. So you kind of make the decision. Do I want to work for the exclusive for this builder, which is almost more of a job, but you can't do resale, right? Or you go the resale route. And then I know other markets where, you can have the best of both worlds and so forth. So when I get asked this question, I'm not able to answer from personal experience on how to get in with developers and so forth, but I get it a lot. And I get the lucrativeness of it. So for those that might want to go that route and go into that niche, like, I mean, what are some of the top advice or tips, suggestions that you have as far as, developing those relationships with the developers and, proving to them that you can become an asset and eventually leading to the, doing the business that you do with them?
Yeah. So back in the day when I first started, reaching out to builders in the area, what I wanted to do was do something different. And what I had come up with was I dropped Lincoln Log kits. If you're familiar with Lincoln Logs, I think I might date myself here. And I left a little note with the package of Lincoln Logs, whether it was by their office or place of business. And I put a little note, just to remind you of where it all started, something fun and different, And so what I did was I took the list from the local builder association, picked the builders I wanted to pursue, did that, something different. And then of course, integrated that follow-up system so that I could start building those relationships. And when I started to get, really focused on the builder world and development world, the thing that builders need the most, it's not so much, that basic sales person. They really need someone that is, their marketing team, the salesperson, and also acting as that strategic partner to price things properly, give feedback on plans, deal with, or at least be involved a little bit with like their website and their warranty submission process. And when you can go to a builder and describe all of that, it's like nothing they've heard, because agents don't typically do that. And so in doing that, you show that value that yields that full 6% commission. And there's so much more that you can do for them. You can bring them other land opportunities. There's so much value you can show that they want to, pay you what you're worth. But I would definitely say that the more you can line out those services as a whole, think of it like that 360-degree view on what does the builder need, to be a successful builder, that provides so much value to them. And you can separate yourself and secure those relationships by discussing that with them.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, things can sound, sexier than they may actually be, right? And so forth. And I'm sure that, having these big builder clients and so forth is amazing, but I'm sure that they also come with a lot of other challenges and obstacles. And, what are some of those challenges and obstacles that agents, if they're going to go that route, really need to make sure that they're prepared to be able to take on?
Yes. And it's something that I went through, originally. It's when you're working with the builder and you are involved at that level with them, that you're doing joint marketing or general marketing, you're doing more typically than that typical listing would require, is be very mindful of what you agree to and watch your numbers. Because there was one point where, we had our own newspaper, a full newspaper. I split it with the developer, and it was it was 6 figures a year to pay that out. And at the end of the year, it's like, okay, well, we could have gotten a couple of residential listings and, not had to be on site all day, every day. So there's definitely that, side of it that everyone wants to rep a builder developer, but keep in mind, that at the end of the day, this is your business. This is your empire that you're building, and watch what you agree to, because that can really get out of balance quickly. Because, you might be looking at it, I know I did, from the standpoint of, this is for the next 5 years. I'm investing in this because of this long-term relationship, but that relationship can end tomorrow, and so it's so important to keep track of that. And, also keep track of the time that you invest, because there's truly like an allotted amount of time that's necessary to make it successful. But in the builder contractor development world, it's so easy to, linger after the meetings or talk to the builder on the street, while you're out at the site, and it turns into a 5-hour deal. And so be really mindful of, time and money, which is what as entrepreneurs we have control over. Well, just time. Be really mindful of that as well, because that can be out of balance quickly.
Yep. Love it. So then I'm curious, we've all had to, at least as of recording this, right, we're still amongst this COVID-19 pandemic, and all of us real estate agents, regardless of what our niche are, we've had to make adjustments and we've had to pivot and so forth. What are some of the things that you guys have had to do and continue to do to pivot during these changing, crazy times?
Yes. So we have definitely done more photography and video and aerial work, and, completed those 3D dollhouse floor plans on each house, so that if we get to the point where we cannot show a house again, we have all of the digital files and are prepared to go completely online, use Facebook or, lives, whatever it may be, to take those tours while the client, watches from home or wherever they're at. So that's the biggest thing. And then, just making people aware that the sites we are representing, are sanitized and clean, all of that, so that we're, in alignment. But I would say the virtual side, photography, video, has been the biggest thing that we've been focusing on, should this get, any crazier.
Yep. Yep. And during, we're, again, and I hate to keep saying these crazy times, but they are crazy times. And, the biggest thing that I'm finding that people are struggling with, even more than business, is keeping a positive mindset. You go on social media, it's so easy to just go down that negativity path and so forth. And I'm curious, because it's not just you, like, you got to make sure that you're staying focused and staying positive for you, but then you also have all your clients, and then all the people that you lead in your team and so forth. What are you doing to really lead that, I guess, to keep everybody focused and keep yourself focused and positive?
That's a great question. It's so important to manage your inner world. And that's my focus first and foremost, because if my cup isn't full, I truly can't impact others. And so I have a very strict routine that I do every day of the week. It's a longer one. It's about an hour and a half, but I have a meditation. I go through visualizing the short-term and long-term goals that I have to stay, really focused on those things, and then implement, whether it's a book or video, something to keep me learning and progressing as well, obviously. And so that has been huge. And understanding that while all of this is going on externally, at the core of it all, there's so much fear right now, right? And just because things are crazy out there, we don't have to make that be our inner world, right? And I think that realization of, my inner state and how I execute on my goals and what I want to achieve, yes, there are things changing. Like, obviously, there's so much that is different, but I don't have to change the emotional side, which, if you think about that, that's really the fuel behind how we stay on course to achieve what we want to achieve. If you get knocked off course, you can likely track it back to something that ticked you off, or, something that got you off track emotionally in some way. And so being mindful of that and getting those tools in place are paramount. And being aware, that there's fear there. There's a real problem. Let's be clear. Okay. This is a crazy time. But you don't have to watch the news 40,000 times a day, or check, watch the news, be aware of what's happening, be educated, but don't hang out there. Look at it more from an educational standpoint, so you can be aware of what's happening, and then keep focused on the goal.
Yeah, love it. So, you mentioned meditation. I'm just curious, what have you found from a benefit standpoint? Like, what do you found that meditation does for you? How does it improve and help your life?
Yes. So it calms me down, and the mind is always going to be racing. And a lot of people think meditation is going, into a sacred posture and your mind is clear and all is well in the world. And that's not it at all. It's definitely more, being aware of the feelings and thoughts and those things, how they're creating your reality and your beliefs, being mindful of that. And with meditation, simply closing your eyes and taking 3 conscious breaths. And that's a conscious breath is that your exhalation is longer than your inhalation. So very simple. You can do it anywhere, anytime during the day. It just brings you back to center. And if you're centered, you're able to be clear in your, dealings, clear in what you're after, and not get distracted as much. So that has been, huge for me, especially in leading. I get a lot of feedback from people that when crazy things happen, they always notice that I'm very calm, and I'm able to find solutions quickly, which in the leadership position, it's so important. And I totally you know, go back to meditation as, you know, the solution that I use to be able to lead from that space.
Oh, love it. And do you have like an app that you do, or like if somebody's wanting to get into meditation, like do you recommend an app or a place for people to kind of start that journey?
Absolutely. So I go to a wisdom school in India called O&O Academy, and they created an app, and it's called The Breathing Room. And what I love about that app is they have 3-minute meditation, and they have, you know, a 20-minute meditation. So there's something there for everyone. And that's called The Breathing Room.
Yeah, awesome. So I know that you're located in Idaho, but where specifically is your team at?
We're in the Boise area, so Treasure Valley.
Okay, and you guys are, I mean, I've never actually been to Boise, but I have friends that are, realtors there and so forth. But even, on the news, I've heard Zillow and Redfin talking about that being such a big hot spot where having a big influx of people moving from Seattle, San Francisco, and so forth. And, what's the market looking like right now in Boise?
Yeah, so we're actually seeing 200 new people a day coming to Boise. So real quick, the traffic is not bad, let's be clear, but we're seeing it change quickly, even in the last 6 months, because that's how many people are coming. So it's definitely been busy on that front, and our supply and inventory is at record lows. So that, combined with the demand and the interest rates, makes for very busy weeks and months.
Yeah. What's the attraction? I mean, is it affordability? Is it, a great place for businesses to operate? Like what's attracting 200 people a day is an insane number.
Yeah.
Like what's attracting all these people?
Yeah. So quality of life, it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. I was walking along the river. We have a green belt system that goes from, one city to the next. And I was walking along the green belt. And if you go off the green belt, you have all of the, major attractions, restaurants, shopping, all of that. And then you have this, quiet, like enjoy nature aspect. So definitely that quality of life. The 4 seasons, we have, just a beautiful fall, and it's very dry here, so we don't have a lot of humidity. So that is a huge attraction. Cost of living is very low. And so what we're seeing is that pricing overall, is cutting out the locals just because salaries are not that high here. And I think that's also that, attractor factor for outside relocation folks is that low cost of living. We have tax incentives for primary homeowners here, where they get to deduct $100,000 or half of the value of their home, whichever is less. And so things like that are so much different than California, other states where taxes are insane. I mean, just the cost. I remember someone recently talking about registering their car in California. It was $500 more in California than it was when they went and registered their car here. So I think that definitely is the main, attraction.
Yep, love it. And then, with all these people moving there, and obviously they need homes and so forth, are you guys doing a lot of kind of targeted marketing to these other hotspot states and areas where people are moving in, or is it still mainly the kind of local marketing? I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely more local. We do some of that SEO stuff, but our business has been all referrals and new construction here locally. But we're seeing that the major states that are coming here are California, Washington, and then Georgia and Florida were also on that list. So those are the main, large states.
Yeah. So then when it comes to, because I'm guessing that, you guys also do and have done a lot of residential sales over the years as well. What are some of the main differences when it comes from marketing a new build versus marketing a residential listing? And is there a difference?
Yeah. So with new construction, it's definitely more focus on the long term and the brand, and, selling that brand and that concept. Whereas the individual existing residential, it's selling that house and getting the homeowner to that next step. So I would say that those high level are the two differences. And, the tactical items of managing that new construction subdivision or builder, there are a lot of similarities to what you would do for a typical home. It's, if you have we don't post in the newspaper, I'm just using this, like, let's say you have a, newspaper listing, and you're doing that in both cases, right? You're doing photography in both cases, but with the new development, you're doing aerials, you're doing the stage models and the non-stage, you're doing a lot more of that. Those things are similar, but working more on that brand development versus the individual is the biggest difference.
Yep. Love it. And I saw some questions that you had and the talking points that you guys had provided that really intrigued me. And one of those is, in your opinion, what do you feel realtors are missing from their education?
Yeah, so that biggest thing is standards, professional standards, and the base foundation of how to run a business and how to run a real estate business. So we all go to real estate school and you get your license in a very short amount of time. And we aren't even necessarily told that a headshot is needed or a different kind of tax ID is needed to set up the type of corporation that is in alignment with the company we want to build. And so I think it's so important, that a solution is put in place, because most of the issues that we have in our industry and why real estate agents can have a bad rap is the lack of communication, professionalism, and those standards. Because if they had that, if they had the ability to, know that I need to call 5 people a day and have that structure, and, 5 people a day equals X amount of listing appointments and X amount of sales. If they had that business plan on the front end, that frees their minds up to focus on customer service, which naturally then affects the client and the whole industry, because it just takes one person doing that, right? And up-leveling that standard. And so if that structure and those standards could be in place, they could deliver at a high level, which then changes the customer experience and industry reputation.
Yeah. I don't think people that are getting into real estate understand. I hear so many realtors that jump into the business. They're like, oh, I bought a house and saw what my realtor did, and they did a subpar job, and I thought I could do that and looked easy, and but I don't know if they're fully prepared for the amount of energy and focus that it takes to go out there and obtain the clients, and
right.
What it takes. And like you mentioned, you get out of real estate school and it's kind of how to cover your ass,
exactly,
write the contracts, but there is no, all right, now how do you go out there and get business?
Right.
Yep. 100%. So when you say, raising the standard, what are things, I know that you mentioned having a plan, right? Knowing your numbers, what it's going to take to equate to you accomplishing your goals. But what are other things that you see that realtors could and should be doing to raise the standards of us as an industry as a whole?
Yes. So just a few things, that could change is when you're listing a house, exhaust all of the fields in the MLS listing. If there's 50 pictures, fill up the 50. If there are fields of which dimensions, what are the dimensions of the rooms or the garages, complete everything. I think that's the biggest thing is just doing what the minimum is to, get the house out there. And if you really take the time to do a complete listing, make sure that house and that client has that great first impression, it shows so much more about you. And I think that's something that they don't think about, is I'm just putting this listing up. No, you're not. You're putting this listing up, which helps one client, but everyone else is watching you. And so your professionalism, future referrals can be affected by this one thing. So, looking at things like, how can I complete this at an excellent level, asking yourself those questions. Another thing is being mindful of interactions with your fellow agents and brokers, being professional in those dealings. So much opportunity can come from your colleagues in the business. And so being mindful of those relationships and maintaining that professionalism. And then overall, just raising that standard of constantly ask yourself, how would I feel if I was this client? How would I feel if I was this agent dealing with me? And if you can put yourself in the other's shoes constantly, you can better anticipate everyone's needs, which then inspires you to take extra steps, go the extra mile for people. And that can build an empire in and of itself without any digital marketing or anything. It's just, how is this person perceiving this experience and how can I make it the best it can be?
Yeah, love it. And then, as a team leader, especially representing these big developers, right? Because I don't want to say that it's not a big deal if an agent on a team drops the ball on a deal, right? I mean, it can suck and it's something that we don't want, but there's a difference between losing one client that would be one purchase versus a builder that could be, a $500,000 yearly account, right? So I'm guessing that you've got to make sure that your agents that you're bringing on are operating continuously by very high standards and so forth that don't jeopardize these huge accounts that you guys have. What are some of the things that you do as a leader to, ensure that you're bringing on people with these high standards and that they're executing, to those same expectations?
Yes, this is such a great question because it's something that we've grown through with one of our projects because the agent that is working the project and the representative out there is a very experienced agent, and we've just worked out some kinks together, on implementing different checklists and accountability of those checklists, and so this is a great topic. So one thing that is so important is putting the person in place and making them the leader. And as team leaders, this is easy to talk about, but typically, you still are involved in a co-listing type fashion. But when you empower someone to own their role in something, they perform at a different level. And so that's really important to just make that known and make them understand that, if you mess up, it's not just us that hurt by it, right? It's all of us. And so that's really helpful. Implementing those checklists from not only a metric standpoint on how many people you need to get in touch with and sales related metrics, but also putting the, care of the client metrics in place from marketing to communication with the builder developers and managing that. And then checking in on it every day. So we have a check-in that we do every day, and then a more in-depth check-in that we do at the end of the week. So that's really, really important. And then also understanding, what does happen if the ball is dropped or something significant goes sideways? How are you going to handle that as the team lead? And my approach is having that mindset of working through it, instead of this person doesn't work. And so you try to find a replacement or something like that. Going into more of that training aspect with them if something does come up, and then assuring the client that this will not happen again. And everyone appreciates that because they just want you to get the job done, And so I think those things not only create a culture of everyone winning together, but also that high level, of customer service is able to be maintained because you're tracking it so quickly and also having that communication with the client.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's have the processes and the systems, but I love what you said of you're checking them daily, inspect what you expect.
Yeah.
That way, if, a ball does get dropped, hopefully you catch it before it becomes a problem and you're able to use those as learning lessons and growth opportunities, right? And then what is it like with the hiring process? How crucial is that to, I remember hearing a story from one of my mentors, Darren Hardy, where he went, I think it was, Hilton, Hilton Marriott, one of the hotels. And, Darren was with the CEO and he's like, yeah, everybody here is so nice. Like, all the staff, he's like, what's the secret? And the CEO looks at him, he's like, we just hire nice people. And he's like, oh, right. So, I'm sure that the hiring process is so crucial, to this. What are things that you do to vet when you're growing your team and looking to bring on, whether it's an admin or an agent and so forth, to vet them to make sure that they are the right fit, not just from a skill set standpoint, but a culture standpoint and so forth?
Yes. So this has been my, I would say, biggest learning opportunity with hiring over the last 14 years. And the changes I've made in the last year and a half have been everything. So the first thing that I have done is put a process in place that to apply for a job, they actually have to submit a video that answers a question of everything, why they're going to be good at the role, all of that. And just recently, I ran these numbers. We had 84 applicants and 4 people followed the direction on the posting. And so that is such a great way to start the process, know who's serious, and also be more efficient with it. So I've really loved how that's worked. The other part is implementing something like the DISC personality test. There's the Colby, the Myers-Briggs, something that dives deeper with them. That's an actual personality test behavioral assessment is great too, because then you have, both sides. You have your experience and then the back end of the person. And then from there, we, check all the references, and we check 5 or more, because after 3 references, that's when you get into the good stuff. That is where you see if if they're consistent with each reference, or if one, is like, well, they weren't so good here. So that's telling after the 3 references. And then, once we get to that point, taking them through a structured explanation of the org chart, the vision of the company, really painting that picture so that they can understand that the growth within your company isn't limited to them being a transaction coordinator right now, that they could truly be here for their entire career. Painting that picture just cements that culture of anything is possible, and that they can achieve what they want with you and your company. And then also bringing in their vision board and their goals. That's something that is really important on our team is, each person does their vision board, and we all know each other's goals. And so, you can talk to people about that along the way and hold people accountable, and remind them that that's what they're working for. So I think that front end process has been huge. And then the training and clear expectations from that point just sets you up for great success. It's all about those systems.
Yep. No, I love that. So then talk to us about the Limitless Realtor Circle. So in addition to, this amazing team that you've created over, this 14-year journey or so, you also started this training program for realtors. I mean, what led to it, and just kind of give us a lowdown of how the training works and so forth.
Yes. So as I had mentioned, when I got into real estate, I wanted to change the face of real estate. And to me at first, that meant, doing a great job for people and one by one affecting them. And then it was, build this team and try to do it that way. And then I thought I should probably just go to the source, right? Which is, if we look at the source of the problem, it's the realtors that, don't have this foundation of how to run this business, how to build the business. And so that was then taken, from this thought or idea to implementing a process, where within our team to test it, where a realtor could come in new to our team, submit what their goals are financially, and then we have, this system that spits out, here's what you have to do every day, here's, your conversions, all of this, and then how they're going to do it. So one thing that I find with real estate agents is it's like they know they need to make their calls, but things can get so busy during the day that you forget, who was I going to call? Oh, who am I supposed to lead gen, And so if you can, what we want to do is answer every single question so that the real estate agent doesn't have to think about anything. So we calculate what their goals are and then have them choose what kind of, sphere of influence, past clients, farming, builders, for sell by owners, what are you interested in to pursue for your lead generation? They then cannot pick, any more than 3. And then from there, make a list of how many people. So for example, if they need to contact 10 people a day, then 10 for sell by owners need to be contacted each day. And then here's exactly what you say that has converted, 6 out of 10 times based on our conversions over the last, 10 years since we've been running those numbers. And then this is what you say, this is what you bring to the appointment. So essentially there are no questions for them to be successful. So a lot of times, I get the question, well, that sounds great for new agents, but what about if I'm an experienced agent and I've been in the business for 10 plus years and I have this great book of business? Well, for them, it's same process, but different elements to it. And so those elements are, getting more committed to how you're spending your time so that you can enjoy your family again, get back into balance from hitting it so hard, for so many years to enjoying your life, but still having that great business, maybe not working weekends. But what's so interesting is that after testing this program on both, it wasn't only that for the experienced agents, but since they didn't have the foundation after real estate school either, they had that need for the infrastructure of how do I have that consistency in my business so I don't, experience those peaks and valleys. So that's the kind of nuts and bolts of the system and the training.
Yep, love it. So it sounds like essentially like you've taken your kind of just your team playbook.
Yes.
And have been able to open it up and be able to support agents outside your team. Now, is this something that's available for agents all throughout the country?
Yes.
Or is it specific to your area or?
It's all across the country. Yes. So, yep, I've worked with, agents in all states. So it's definitely available. Obviously, we're not going to go into licensing details, because that's specific state to state, but.
Right. Yep. No, I love that. Yeah. And I mean, it's so true, man. It's, when you look at experienced agents, I mean, I meet agents that have been in this business for 30 years and they still don't have the foundational items. It's like they repeat the same mediocre year and somehow just survive for 10, 20 years and so forth and don't have those foundational items. So I love that. For those that are watching and listening, if they are interested in learning more about the coaching program and getting involved with it, where is the best place to go do that at?
Yes, it's the website, which is limitlesswithstacyb.com. My last name is Bahrenfuss, which is hard to say, hard to spell. And so most people call me Stacy B.
Yeah, love it. So then, I'm on a personal level, because you've got these developer clients, like I have a large team here in Arizona and we do, about 50 to, between 50 and 60 transactions a month. But it's residential. It's, I'm not having to communicate to my agent's clients, right? Whereas an example, when I was doing a lot of REO, those asset managers want to speak directly to me. So I'm guessing a lot of these developer relationships that you have, even though you can delegate a lot to your agents, I'm sure they still want to communicate with you and so forth, right? So you've got, your these, clients that you're having to communicate with, you've got your team that you're leading, your business, this coaching business, what do you do to keep it kind of all together? And because you're busy, you got a lot on your plate.
Yes. Yep. Focus, of course, is number one for me, just, to really I live by my calendar and that's huge for me. But the thing, just going back to how I've designed the representation for the developments, is in putting that leader in place, I also communicate to the developer and client that he is our expert. I have trained him myself personally to put him in place. And so a lot of that communication, most of it goes through the on-site agent. The things that I do still handle, is more like that high level, like we need to, launch the next phase kind of conversations. So being really mindful of how I'm spending my time and completing time audits regularly. I, was doing them quarterly and I do them monthly and probably I'll be doing them weekly soon, just like, okay, where did I spend my time last week? And how can I cut this out so that I can focus more on, the big business opportunities and driving that all forward.
Yep. That's awesome. Yep. Love it. So then, I one of the hardest things I think for a lot of people when they start to grow their teams is being comfortable with delegation and learning to let go, and you're letting go of huge projects, right? And I'm sure that you may have, obviously you did it, but I'm sure that you probably battled with, delegation when you first started doing this and letting go of that stuff. What are ways that you've been successful with that, as well as if somebody's, wanting to hire their first assistant or whatever, but is having struggles with that, like what advice would you give them?
Yes, I would say that if you look at every situation and anything that does not go how it should, or, exactly how you've trained on it, it is your fault as the leader. It is your responsibility. And so I found that when I approach things like that, I don't waste time in frustration, because being frustrated is basically being a victim, which is impossible if you're taking 100% responsibility for your life. And so that definitely is the number one thing. If someone is not doing their job, it is my fault. What didn't I explain? What didn't I cover? And, if a new hire is, not completing their numbers, is it something that I have done? Have I really, given them everything? And then if I have, and they still are not doing it, well, that accountability is then missing if they're still on my team, because they don't get to be on the team and not do what's required of them. So creating that, creating responsible adults in each department, is, I think, a completely different game than how a lot of people run companies, because I can't tell you how much time I used to spend of like, this person isn't doing what they're supposed to. And as soon as I just flipped that, it was life-changing, because you're not worrying about it after work or, during the day, and looking at them through those lenses, because you're taking responsibility for everything.
Yep. Love it. So then, a lot of leaders and driven people have a very difficult time shutting it off, right? And whether you want to call it work-life balance, and I know it's not always a balance of time, but, we also have to go out there and live life and enjoy life and so forth. What are things that you do to be able to, I guess, shut it off and be able to go enjoy yourself outside of business? Because I know so many successful, driven people have such a challenge with that.
Yes, it is simply a decision. And I hate to simplify it down to that, distill it down to that, but I tried a lot of different things for a long time. And as soon as I realized, it's a decision of when do I stop and when do I start? And the only person that's going to make sure that happens is me. And it's not on fire. It's not an emergency. And in real estate, especially, everything, as you know, it's like always an emergency. But I mean, after 6:00 at night, nothing's going to happen until tomorrow anyway. So just having that understanding of what's priority, what's not, and then figuring out what works for you, what your boundaries are, is everything, and sticking to that, and being okay with, getting pushback from whether it's your clients or your team or what have you. Obviously, you avoid that if you set those expectations up front and are clear with, when you shut it off and when you start again, and everyone will call you during that window of time. It's just funny. Before I set those boundaries, I would get calls until 11 at night and interact with them. And as soon as I put that in place, I still got those calls, didn't take them. And everyone started to be, trained to what my process was.
Yeah. Love that. So if, Stacy today, knowing everything that through this amazing career that you've created and that you've learned over these years, if Stacy today could go back and have a conversation with yourself when you first began this journey at 19 years old, and give yourself 2 pieces of advice that you feel would have just been a big game changer on this, success journey that you're on, what would those 2 pieces of advice look like?
Ooh, that's good. Okay. I would say listen to your gut. And what would be the second one? Gosh, that's such a big one. Listen to your gut and be really clear in your expectations. Those would be the 2.
Yeah. And when you say being very clear in expectations, is that expectations that you set for yourself, expectations with clients, expectations with your team, or kind of all of the above?
All of the above.
Yeah.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah, love it. Powerful stuff. And Stacy, if anybody's, we've got a lot of realtors listening to this from all over the country, and a lot in your market, so if somebody, I know that you gave the link to your coaching program, which anybody that's watching and listening, if you guys just scroll below, we'll make sure to have, all of these links and all Stacy's contact info. But if, somebody is in your market and interested in interviewing to see if they're a fit for your team, or, if they're in California, one of their clients is moving to Boise and want to send you a referral and so forth, like what are the best places to get in touch with you, to continue following you and so forth?
Yes. So the best place is go to our website, which is catalystidaho.com. And that's CATALYST, Idaho spelled out.com.
Awesome. And again, those watching and listening will make it super easy. And if you just scroll below, we'll have all of those links and Stacy's social media handles and all of that. So you can get in touch with her and send her referrals and continue to follow up with her and check out our coaching program and all that. And Stacy, I know how busy you are and truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here. This has been an honor and a lot of fun.
Yes, likewise. It's truly my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. And those watching and listening, as always, we truly appreciate your support. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Peace.